Back rolling here, KCOU Thursday morning, live from Columbia. Let's head down to the Plains, where I hear frost is coming up this weekend. Did you hear about this, Seth? The freeze is coming to Columbia. We'll see if we're ready for it. Our friend Tyler Raley from the Auburn Plainsman joins us. Tyler, how are you?
Billy, I'm doing well. It's getting a little cold down here as well. We're approaching winter. But everything's going all right.
Yeah. I mean, we got a nice frost this morning. It's getting chilly to walk in class. I'm struggling out here, Seth. So Tyler, obviously an interesting spot here for Auburn. A team that a lot of people had picked as maybe a dark horse SEC team that could mess around and win some games. And you looked at that schedule, 5 straight games at home. Jordan-Hare, a really tough place to play. There were certainly opportunities to win some games early. They go into the bye week at 2-4. What's the response been like from this team over the last 2 weeks? Obviously, a lot of young guys. How has Hugh kind of tried to pull this thing together before they hit the back half of the season?
Well, it's been kind of a shock. I think that everyone was under the impression that going into the season, Peyton Thorne would be a much improved quarterback, and that Peyton Thorne would really perform out of his mind coming off a struggling year one. So where the Auburn football team is at right now is that they need to find answers quickly on offense and defense, because the struggles have been there on both sides of the ball. And really for the offense, it's been more about not being able to finish drives and consistently executing. But then you have on the defensive secondary has really struggled, especially on third downs. And it's just kind of like a snowball effect, really, kind of relating that to the freeze at this point. But I guess it's really part of Freeze's plan right now that he expected there to be some struggles, but no one really expected this to come in year two. Right. We did not expect to have Auburn sitting here at 2-4. There were a few plays from going 5-0 in that home stretch. So it's just a flipped record.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And Seth and I were talking about this, that it feels like that's kind of the, there's for some reason too, I think, really extreme narratives about this team. And like anything, I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle that, it's just been the turnovers, or, people have completely written this team off. I mean, they've played very well down to down, right? Efficiency-wise. They've moved the ball pretty well this year. Thorne, no turnovers in the game against Georgia. Obviously a good defense. How much do you read into that? Obviously only that one turnover, and that came late in the Oklahoma game. Do you think he's turned a corner, or are you still in the camp of, I'm going to have to see it to believe it, with the turnover woes specifically?
Right. And I think you're completely correct in saying the statement. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. Really, one turnover in the last 2 games says a lot about Thorne's play, and the rest of the offense. Really, one turnover overall has been a monumental, but it really doesn't help the fact that they're still tied for dead last in the nation with a -11 turnover margin. And that's really not something you want to be going into the back half of your season holding on to. Obviously, the Oklahoma one, as we said, was very detrimental. And when you're looking at a 27-21 loss, that pretty much made all the difference. And then you go into Georgia, which, like you said, Thorne and the defense gave us a chance. 31-13, that Georgia pulled away late in the second half. They go into halftime. If Auburn scores, that's a 1-possession game. It's just a whole thing. So I really am going to have to see it to believe it. But I do think Thorne has been steadily improving. But we will find out a lot on Saturday at 11 a.m. when kickoff happens.
And I think that goes both ways as well. Speaking on the receiver front, a lot was made last year about how the receiving core could not produce. This year, Keandre Lambert-Smith leads the SEC in touchdowns. He's been fantastic, especially those kind of 50-50 balls. What's he been able to? What kind of step has he taken this year? And then maybe who are some other guys in the receiving core that you've looked at as big developers? Obviously, I know Cam Coleman shown some flashes as being the talented receiver. I believe he was the #1 ranked receiver in the country, right, in this class.
I think he was definitely top 3.
Okay.
I would have to go back and look at the final numbers.
Yeah, but is there anybody else in this receiving core outside of Keandre that you've looked at this year that's taken a big step forward in the passing game?
Well, I mean, Keandre, just a quick comment on that. Amongst a young receiving core, Keandre Lambert-Smith has been that veteran leader, especially coming from Penn State, who's a highly touted program nowadays, where James Franklin has made that program into a national powerhouse. Still can't make that final push, but I digress. Uh, as far as to your question on other receivers, Malcolm Simmons, freshman out of Benjamin Russell High School, so about 45 minutes away from Auburn, has been a speed threat, and he has really dominated players, other secondary defenders in the slot, on the edge. He's really a do-it-all guy, and we've seen him have some breakaway touchdowns on the season. And he has been an up-and-coming guy who really has shown Coach Freeze that he can play ball, that he can defend, that he can go against these SEC defenders and make a name for himself. So I really think Malcolm is due to have probably a slump at some point, but he has really impressed fans early on in the season. Like you said, Cam Coleman has shown signs. He's not there yet, but he has made some big plays, and we've seen some big plays from him on the sidelines, where he's just making incredible catches against defenders that freshman receivers normally don't have any business doing. And we've seen that as well with Ryan Williams at Alabama. It's kind of like that same mold. So I really think those two have been really, really crucial into Auburn's success. But then you've got Rivaldo Fairweather, who last year he had a decent season. I don't know. I really don't know how you describe it, because last year's receiving numbers were, quite frankly, awful for the Tigers. And so you got Fairweather, who really needs to turn a corner now as, again, one of the older guys in this group, but he's been dropping a lot of passes, and he's got talent as a big guy, but where is that going to lead to in the back half of the season? Who knows? And but I do think Auburn's got a talented receiving core, and they've just got to turn this corner and make plays consistently from Thorne's passes.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at this wide receiver room that you've been impressed with, coming into Columbia on Saturday. How big of a, against this secondary of Missouri that seemed to struggle at times, how big of a impact do you think that those guys can make this week?
I think Auburn's got to get a fast start going off the jump. It has been about finishing drives, and we really have not seen that from what Auburn has presented this year. They can get past midfield. There's no question about that. Thorne can make the plays and get the balls to his receivers, but it's about finishing the drives, especially in the red zone. And this Auburn team has settled for field goals way too often this season, and it's shown in the scores. I mean, if you look at the SEC games that Auburn has gone through, 14 points against Arkansas, 21 against Oklahoma, a game probably Auburn should have very easily won, both of those games, really. And then 13 points at Georgia, which, speaks for itself, but still, all those numbers. We were at the same point last season through 5 games where Auburn had only scored over 20 points once against a power conference opponent. So where does this Auburn offense lie as far as finishing drives? And I think if Auburn's offense can finish drives, I think they stand a very good chance of success. But if they can't, there are going to be some problems early, and it just might be another domino effect that Hugh Freeze's offense can't get out of.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that's so big for a struggling team, is getting that confidence back, avoiding the mindset of, oh, here we go again, right? Like, that's just the thing you have to snap out of. And I think you're right in identifying that a fast start could completely change that around. Turning things over to the defensive side with DJ Durkin, the unit's been, am I wrong for saying they've been solid? But just a lot's been asked of them with some of the turnover issues that the offense has had. What have been some bright spots for you defensively with this team?
I think the defense really consistently has given Auburn a chance to win every single game. but it's like you said, they've been asked a lot to go out on the field consistently, drive after drive, especially early in the early part of the year, those first 3 games when there were so many turnovers that it just drains them, to be honest. And so that energy is really taken out of the air for this Auburn team. No momentum can really be created because the offense can't score. And so, yeah, you're right. This defense really has been solid. And I really think that Eugene Asante has been the clear leader. He's as a linebacker, Asante has been like the energizer for this team, especially the last 2 years. I don't know if you guys have seen on social media or anything from him, but Asante's been like the guy who goes around campus saying hi to everyone. He's always of a let's work mentality. That's his slogan. And so Asante drives to the ball. He's got great pursuit in that defensive and really in a secondary. He can play all over the field, but in that linebacker position, he's got great pursuit on the ball to run a guy down and go and get him tackled before he gets too far into the defensive secondary. But then you've got a player like Jaron Thompson who has really turned around. The transfer from the Texas Longhorns came in, and he was touted as a guy who could really make an impact for Auburn in the secondary. And he's shown some bright spots. He really had I'd say a rough start, but now he's kind of turned it around. And if we look at his stats real quick, 29 total tackles on the season. He's got 1 interception and 3 pass deflections, 1 sack. He's really kind of turning the corner right now. His tackle numbers have been up as of the last 3 games, and he got his interception against New Mexico, which really isn't saying much, but he's kind of showing that veteran leadership, especially now that Texas is in the SEC. He knows what big games mean for, and he was on that team that went into Tuscaloosa last year and beat Alabama on their home field. So there's a couple of bright spots in the defense, but the big part about this has been third down conversions, really, and just the entire team. I wouldn't say give up on third down is the right term, but they really don't pursue as well when they're playing on third down. They cannot get off the field, which is in turn showing like the fatigue from them and the lesser amount of energy. And so they can't get the offense to get some momentum. And so it's just a spiral.
You talk about this defense. How do you see this group faring against an offense that, if they find their footing in the passing game in Missouri, they've got the weapons of Theo Weiss, they've got the weapon of Luther Burden as well. How do you think that could go if Missouri can find the passing game in this one?
If you want me to be straight up, guys, I mean, if Missouri gets into a rhythm in the passing game, Auburn might be in trouble. We've seen that way too often where teams string together a good amount of plays in succession, and Auburn just cannot find the answer. And they'll try a different amount of defensive schemes, but it seems that nothing will work at times. And we saw that really against Georgia at points, that Carson Beck would string together a number of passes, and then Auburn couldn't get them off the field at all. And then you go back to the third down conversation. It was a lot of third down passes that Carson Beck would make. And you think, when is this Auburn defense going to find the answer? And so if they get Luther Burden and Theo Weiss going, I think it could be a long day, especially on an early morning wake up for the Tigers from the Plains.
Real quickly, before we let you head out, Tyler, again, appreciate the time. If you would, give me maybe, what's the biggest key for this Auburn team if they want to win this game? Give me an offensive key and a defensive key that you're really dialed into Saturday, that, you're going to watch the first quarter and you're going to say, all right, if we got this going, I feel good. But if that's not working, we might be in some trouble.
I think offensively that if Peyton Thorne can play consistently and be able to string 1 or 2 drives together, I guess in the first quarter, really just in the first half overall, the first half's going to tell me a lot about how this game is going to go. And if Peyton Thorne can string a couple of drives together and get his momentum going, I feel fine about where the Auburn Tigers are going in this game. I'm not saying they would outright win, but I'm saying I'd feel better where that team would go. Now, defensively, I've preached it the last 5 minutes, the third down, and that if you can contain the big receivers for Missouri and Theo Weiss and Luther Burden, that you're looking at a position where Auburn's defense can get off the field. Auburn's defense just has to get off the field. A lot of 3-and-outs need to be forced. And if it's not a 3-and-out, it needs to be less than 7 plays on any particular drive. You need to force a lot of punts. Auburn's defense just has to get off the field, get that energy going, especially in an early start. Now, I will say, guys, because I was crunching the numbers real quick, and Auburn fans kind of know this, and it's not outstanding by any means. But if you look at the past decade of Auburn's schedule, Auburn is 16-12 in 11 a.m. games.
Okay.
Which is really weird because Auburn, you look at Auburn's environment and you think, oh, the jungle, the student section, it's wild at night. But somehow Auburn has a winning record of 16-12 in 11 a.m. games. And really that's more relevant on the road. And if you look at it we've seen it a lot against a team like Arkansas in the last few years, where Auburn has gone up to Fayetteville and win. But last time Auburn and Missouri played, I believe it was an 11 a.m. game.
I was at that game. Yeah,
right.
Down at Jordan Hare.
Yeah,
that was ugly. That was ugly.
That game almost got me fired from my job.
Everyone in there.
Yeah.
But an 11 a.m. game seems to favor Auburn a lot more right now than a 6:30 game. So I'd be interested to see what this early wake up does, because this is Auburn's first 11 a.m. game of the year. We'll see where that goes, what the mindset is. I think that could be a potential to play a factor in this game. I'm not saying it's going to be the factor by any means, but it could be a factor in how Auburn plays.
Yeah, we'll certainly see. Tyler, I really appreciate the time. Again, guys, that's Tyler Raley. You can check him out on Twitter. Writes for the Plainsman down there at Auburn. You coming up again this weekend? Sorry, are you coming up for the game on Saturday?
So I'm flying up to St. Louis tomorrow morning,
okay,
and then I will be in Columbia on Saturday.
Yeah, well, safe travels, man. Hope you enjoy all CoMo has to offer. I'll see you.
Thank you.